Hello and welcome back to Grapple Theory. I'm Jamie and today I'm joined by a very special guest. He's been a fixture on the BritWres scene for a number of years now. He's a former powerlifter, he's a huge fan of Crystal Palace Football Club and he loves spending his spare time in Ibiza. Now most recently you would have seen him as the host of Progress Wrestling, which is now being shown of course on the WWE network. It's Big Wavy, Roy Johnson. Roy, thanks so much for joining us. How are you doing?
Yeah, no, not busy. Not busy, not bad. Busy Friday.
I was going to say, I was not expecting the opposite, also very busy.
No. I wish.
How are things? What have you been busy with? Apart from obviously all the stuff with Progress.
Everything. The life of being a independent professional wrestler whose sole income isn't made up from wrestling.
I was going to say, it's tricky. We've obviously spoken to a few people who are in a similar boat. I mean, I as a sports fan, again, as with yourself as a football fan, I guess you would equate it to being almost like a semi-pro footballer as well, where you've got to have that side job, and I imagine the grind is just crazy.
Yeah, because you've got to do what you need to do to keep the lights on, for like obviously pay bills and what have you, and then you've got to do the stuff you need to do for like your craft and the things that come with it, wrestling training, gym, all that boring crap that has to be done. So it's like I'm constantly doing something.
Yeah.
It is working because pull the curtains back. Wrestling isn't my only source of income. It can't be. But yeah, so I have to work my job and then fit in gym and training and watching wrestling and everything I've got to do around that. So I need to get this big money contract so I don't have to do all these.
I mean, that's the thing. That's the thing we got to do. Isn't it? Anyone watching has got to sign you up because that's the thing I was going to say. Obviously, the grind is crazy, but ultimately, for any wrestler in your position who's doing it part time and working part time to pay the bills, that's the goal, isn't it? Is to be full time, whether it's for a big company or just as an indie wrestler traveling.
Yeah, it's true. And the thing with that is as well, it doesn't make it easier for you. Because the people who are doing it full time are obviously at a world class level, because they have the time to put into their craft and stuff, and they're getting paid a full time wage for doing it. It's kind of you're trying to get to that level with less resources. That makes sense.
No, absolutely. No, I totally understand. And let's talk about your wrestling to start with. Obviously, you've been back doing announcing with Progress, the hosting. How has that been? How did that come about, that whole deal?
So I guess after COVID and speaking out and stuff, and there was a big gap and pause and whatever, Progress had their big reset like everyone else has. And basically we kept in contact. There was a group of people considered to be the core roster going forward. We all kind of kept in contact with Progress and stuff. Progress gave me a bunch of dates for this year, and then while I sat about waiting for whatever to happen with regards to wrestling, they basically gave me the opportunity to do the hosting while obviously Jim's gone. Jim was obviously I guess the host as well as one of the owners and what have you, and the Progress, so to speak. So they offered that gig to me, and I think I was the only natural fit for that because of someone who's been with Progress for a while, someone who's familiar to their audience. And I thought it over, and I thought, this seems like a good opportunity for me to take on. So essentially, I did it.
Yeah. And that was
simple as that, really.
And talking about that, obviously, people that have seen you in ring, and come into the ring, you're very charismatic and you're very bold and you're very, out there. So how was it having to adapt to doing that job while there were no fans, more playing up to the camera?
Very, very difficult. I didn't realize much about the first set of tapings, how hard it was, because you think you're talking to people on a certain level. I think in fact getting your right level of talking was the first hard thing, because I was shouting through the microphone on the first couple of shows, and it got to and I was losing my voice, and I sort of most of it left. and I don't really lose my voice ever. So I was thinking, what's going on here? But I'm shouting because I'm used to having to, I don't know, project to a certain level. Even though you've got a microphone, whatever, I just felt like I needed to my voice to be at a certain level. But then I realised I have a microphone. There's no one else here with a microphone. There's no one else here to make any noise, so I don't need to shout. That's the first thing I had to work out for myself. Then it's like things like energy levels, because like while we're having a conversation now, it's very conversational and stuff. I can't have that level of energy when I'm hosting. I have to be like up here because
you need to make it sound exciting, don't you? You need to be bringing people in.
If I'm not the most exciting person in the room and I'm hosting, it's not gonna it's not gonna reflect as well on the programming and stuff.
Yeah,
which is difficult, very very difficult when there's no one about. Especially, and it's very very difficult as a wrestler as well when to be talking for, well, I say 2-3 hours, but essentially it's on and off for 2 and 3. Actually, it's on and off for a whole day, really. So in terms of like taping and stuff, and you have to keep up that energy for every match.
Yeah.
It's difficult. It's not an easy job. I'm anticipate it being a lot more fun and easier when the fans are back, definitely. But it's hard work, and I think because there's no so I'll give you an example. So say I'm wrestling and I get feedback from a match, and it's like, I don't know, whatever, you've done something you did doesn't look great or whatever. I can go back into to wrestling school tomorrow and hammer that in and work on it until my next booking. I can't really do that with hosting. It's like, the feedback I get is not extensive anyway. So in the beginning, I was kind of searching out and seeking out for feedback from fans, which isn't the best idea because the people who are vocal about things are usually negative for being negative sake, and you know what I mean. Like, so I'm trying to seek out some sort of feedback, whatever, to think about how can I make this better next time I do it. And that's really difficult when you're the only people who are vocal about anything are very vocally negative. So like, okay, I guess people don't like me doing this gig, so I can't change who I am as a person to better the hosting gig. So give me something, and I don't get a lot of that really. But yeah, it's difficult. But it'll be a lot better, a lot more fun when fans are back. So
for sure.
For wrestling, the show, the hosting, everything. So it's as you said recently, WWE, AEW, TV, how much improved the product is when the fans are. So
absolutely, and you mentioned that because progress-wise, especially, we've spoken already to TK Cooper and Luke Jacobs as well, who've been big parts of those shows, and they say the main thing is timing for them, like knowing when to change a move up or when to do a certain thing based on, normally you go on audience reaction for that. Is it the same hosting, knowing how to sort of stagger what you're saying or when to come in on certain lines?
I think it's probably a lot different. I think with hosting, so it's how to use your voice and the inflection and all that sort of stuff. Which is difficult to know when to do that, and especially when you're doing this role and there's no one else doing it other than you. So you can't even. Well, in fact, in the history of Progress, there's never been anyone who's done this role with no fans. So I can't even go back and watch old Progress shows and be like, they did it that way.
Yeah.
Because because there's nothing to go by.
Nothing to work on. No, for sure.
Yeah. So, and I think, likewise as well as like the guys you've spoken to in the wrestling sense have said, timing and that sort of thing. But you can't. What's your barometer? What you're using to base off? You can't. You're going by feeling and watching something back, but then you can't have a match and just feel like, was my timing all right for this? Because you won't know until you watch it back.
Yeah.
And when we're doing tapings, you could have had 4 matches like that. and there's nothing you can do about it. So yeah, it's difficult all round. So we're just kind of hoping that the fans are back soon.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And what about for you in ring wise? Can we expect a return at some point soon?
At some point, well, I'm sure I'll be in the ring at some point for Progress. I've already had my return back to wrestling last week. So
did you? Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't realise that.
No, that's all right. It's fine. I made my return after 16 months. I've actually for EWE last Sunday.
How was it?
Yeah, it was really good to be back.
Fans of that show or not?
Yeah. There was about 70 to 100 people in. So.
Oh, that's decent. Yeah. Must have been nice to be back in front of a crowd and being able to do what you love.
Yeah, definitely. So, it was good. Good fun.
Fab, brilliant. And yeah, like you say, I mean, obviously, I'm sure you can't give anything away, but is there more lined up for you at Progress in terms of what you guys are doing?
I don't really know, to be honest. I play it by month, by tapings and all that. So we're filming tapings next month, which I'm hosting at, and then we don't know when we're going to be back in front of fans. Don't know. I'm sure there's plans afoot for us to be wrestling in front of fans soon, because the world's opening back up. Other shows are doing stuff in front of fans, and so I mean, I don't know. I think in doing the hosting role, I'd like to be able to do it in front of fans. As much as I really want to get in the ring and wrestle, I'd like to be able to do the hosting in front of fans, because I think that's a big payoff for doing something without fans, is getting to do it in front of them. I think so.
No, for sure.
But who knows, if something happens where I'm needed in the ring, I'll be in the ring, because I'm ready. I'm good to go. So
awesome. And I was going to say, leading on from that, is you say you don't know how much longer you're going to be doing the hosting gig for. I mean, overall, have you enjoyed it? I know it's been weird without fans, but have you enjoyed the whole experience?
I'd say as I've got into doing the role more, I get more comfortable in doing it. Like I said, it's not an easy role at all. There were elements of I guess self-doubt and what have you, and I think not so much in being lazy and stuff, but there's a lot of me thinking I just want to get back to what I'm good at and what I'm good at and what I train at and what I can control, if that makes sense. Like I was saying earlier, if I do something bad in the ring, I can go and work on it.
Yeah.
And it's whatever. It's a little more difficult with hosting. So yeah, I mean, essentially, it all boils down to what happens when fans are back.
Yeah.
My plan is to be back in ring. So there's.
Hopefully so. Yeah. We can't wait to see that. And let's move on to, well, again, with wrestling as your character and your development through it. Like I said before, you come out, you're very flamboyant as well. The other good thing that sort of drew me to you at first, like when I first started watching wrestling, but also oppositely, is the fact that you love wearing your Palace shirt to the ring. So I'm like, football fan, but as you may guess from our emails, I support your biggest rivals. So I hope that doesn't ruin the mood of this too much. But I mean, as a football fan, as being able to come to the ring in your Palace shirt, do you have to really sort of pick and choose those moments based on, the crowd you're in front of and what you know about that town, that city, and the audience, whether they'll get it, connect to that?
Essentially, basically, what happened was, so I wasn't doing anything to do with Palace at all, which is something I'll talk about and I'll tweet about and whatever, because they're a club or what have you. And then Riptide.
Yes.
So got the booking from Riptide. I was doing my normal stuff there. They said to me, "Can you bring your Palace shirt with you to the?" I was like, "Sure." And I had Palace gear, my wrestling gear made up just because I just wanted to have, for no reason. No reason. I just wanted to have gear that had something to do with Palace. So I bought that with my Palace shirt, and then my music parade came out, and I came out in my Palace stuff.
Yeah.
Kit, because I'd never wear a full kit. But essentially red and blue version of Big Wavy. And didn't go down very well.
No, I remember. I was at the show. I remember. Yeah.
Okay, so didn't go down very well in Brighton. And then I came back again to wrestle for Riptide in the Rumble. And beforehand, I went to the club shop and I bought some Palace socks to go with my Palace gear. And then I tweeted the Palace about me having an away fixture in Brighton, to which the club then retweeted it and wished me good luck for my match, which I thought was hilarious because it's wrestling. My football team have now, like, they follow me on Twitter and everything now, and they now have kind of like, I'm like the unofficial Crystal Palace wrestler. So
amazing.
They haven't sent me any kit or anything yet, which is
Palace. What are you doing?
I'm working on that because they sent Wiley a tracksuit just because it looks nice. So why is my like training gear and all this sort of stuff, like that's what I want. They follow me on Twitter. We talk every so often about Palace stuff, but I want to be sent free stuff so I can work to the ring.
Right. Yeah, all I'll say, mate, is that if you're a Brighton fan, that wouldn't happen. Brighton would be on it like that.
because the stuff's
how dare you? I mean, talking about that and the Riptide is what I want to go on specifically. Like, the aim of any wrestler, whether you're face or heel, is to get cheered or booed, and it's sort of general knowledge wrestling wise that if you come out and there's no reaction, that's the worst thing of all. So is it good to know that you always have that in the bag as a Palace fan if you're appearing at Riptide, that you can bust out the shirt and you're just going to come out heel?
Yeah, and it's annoying because I have new Palace gear that I can't really wear anywhere else other than Riptide because, well, no one cares. Well, I can wear it, I guess, locally, but then I'll get cheered.
Yeah,
fine.
Yeah,
but if I wanted to wear it and get booed, I can't wear it anywhere else but Riptide. So Riptide, you want to hurry up and get back into wrestling, and then also throw me a few dates, and I can wear my new Palace gear. So.
Yeah, and that's what we all need to see. And let's talk about the Palace fandom for a minute. Has that been a lifelong thing from when you were a kid as well?
So since I was about 5. I think at the age of 5, that's when I got into football and when I got into wrestling. My dad got me involved in both. So, sorry, excuse me.
That's all right.
It took me to a couple of Palace games, and it took a few games for me to like support Palace. Basically, the first Palace game I went to was Palace versus Norwich, and I was supporting Norwich. And then he took me to Palace versus Man City, and I was supporting Man City. And my dad was kind of like, "Son, you need to support Palace here." So yeah, and then I did. So,
I mean, I'm gonna be a little harsh, but like, that's just the Brighton fan in me. But what did you think first going to Selhurst Park as a kid? Because I there are a lot of times when I go to a stadium and I really like the old feel of a stadium. But I feel like Palace have let it go a little, and that's not a diss to them. Like, it's great atmosphere. Not going to diss that at all. I just think they could, improve it a bit.
The ground's awful, but this is the thing. So when I started going to Palace, I went there before we redid the home end. So when it was like terraces, and then they did that one part of the ground. We thought, oh, cool, they're going to do the rest of it. No, they just did they just did the home side and left the rest of it as it was. And because I've always been a Palace fan, and this is always what I've been used to. So when I've gone to like other away games or whatever, I'm like, oh wow, this is what other football stadiums look like.
Yeah.
But because it's like that's like a nice day out for me. But because I'm like regular Palace, I know what Palace is like. And then I actually worked at Palace for a bit as a steward.
Oh.
Before I started wrestling, I was working the away end, so I'd see the reactions of people coming through, or when they come into the ground and they see what the ground's like. And it's kind of like Marmite. Some love it because some are like, oh yeah, proper like old school football stadium, football ground, and then others who are used to like rent a kit, plastic stadium, all the ones that look the same. They're like, oh, this place is crap.
Yeah.
But it's what I've known. Obviously, I would like us to have a nicer ground, but I don't really mind how ours is. So,
do you get to go to many games?
Not anymore. Not since I started wrestling because
weekend colliding.
weekends and that sort of thing. Before I went. I mean, every season I get a membership anyway because I feel like if I can't go to many games, I want to have the option to be able to go to a few games, or like when we got in the FA Cup final that year.
Yeah.
I was able to get a ticket because I was a member. I wouldn't be able to go. So
yeah,
I like to at least give the club that little bit of money and what have you. But yeah, I can't really commit to any weekends now where I can go and watch the game because I'm likely going to be out wrestling.
Yeah.
But it's annoying because I live so close to the ground.
Do you?
Like I live maybe 2 minutes from the ground. Like so. And that's like a 2-minute walk as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Are there times when you're in the ring, say if Palace have like an evening game or something? Are there times when you've been in the ring and Palace are playing and all you're thinking about is like, oh, I wonder what the score is?
No, because like when I'm resting, I don't think about anything else other than resting. I tend to actually, it's not to the point where I forget about football stuff, and then it's 9 times out of 10 the football's on when I'm driving to a show. So I can't really pay attention to what's going on because I'm driving usually. And then I'll get to the venue and it'll be, I don't know, half time or whatever. And yeah, there's always that. And then I only ever get to check the results on my phone, get notifications when the score happens or whatever, probably before or after my match. But I don't get into it that much as I used to because I'm thinking about wrestling now. So if I've got a show or a match show and I'm thinking about my match, I'm preparing for my match. I don't want any. In fact, I won't even look at my phone.
Sure.
To want to know what the score is. So, yeah.
Stay focused. And what about? I want to get your views on the Brighton Palace rivalry because it's great to have the rivalry. It's a great feud between the two clubs. Obviously, I see quite a mix of people on Twitter. There are people who really hate Palace, like Brighton fans that I know who really hate Palace. But I'm more in the group where I don't like Palace, but there's definitely clubs I hate more than Palace.
Yeah.
Like where do you stand on that?
I'm the same, to be honest, because like growing up, this is so for me growing up, I understood a little bit of the rivalry from what people had told me. You hear for like years and years and years as a Palace fan, we were always singing songs about Brighton, despite the fact we never played them.
Yeah.
So I obviously knew there's like a genuine dislike, hatred for between the two teams, but I never understood where it's from because our rivals, our derbies or whatever, were always Charlton, Millwall, when we're in like Division 1, we'll call it back in the day. And then, the times we've been promoted have been like Arsenal. Those have been our like rivals and stuff. But then we'd always sing songs about Brighton, and then when we finally played them, I read a little bit more into the history. That was the time we beat you 5-0, by the way.
Yeah, thanks.
Read a little bit into the history. I was like, okay, this is why. And then, but then you try and explain that to a casual fan, and they're like, I don't understand why these two teams are rivals because they're not close to each other. I mean, they're close-ish, but there's, you've got teams closer to you than us.
Yeah, and so do you, absolutely.
So it's really tricky one to make people understand and stuff. But like, for me now, like, if I meet a Brighton fan, I'm like, whatever. If I meet like a Millwall or a Charlton fan, I'll give them grief about football and stuff because for me, they're our rivals, our local rivals, all that sort of stuff. So I guess likewise, I kind of understand the rivalry, but I don't have any particular hatred for Brighton.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? That there are Palace fans as well I see who are like, the thing that confuses me most is there are fans on both sides that are like, oh, I'd love like Palace or Brighton, depending on who you're the fan of, to get relegated. And I'm like, no, surely you want them to stay up so we can keep playing each other each year.
Yeah, like, that's the thing with me because I don't like, when Brighton got promoted, I was like, great. Well, actually, when we beat you in the playoffs, semi-finals,
that was the most heartbreaking game I've ever been to. I've got to be honest. Zaha scoring at the Amex to do that, I was. Oh.
I was obviously delighted that we got promoted, but at the same time, I just thought, I wouldn't mind us playing Brighton regularly because it's something to look forward to in the season. And then you got promoted. I'm like, oh, this is great. But then I was just like, because I guess we've always both our teams always flirt with relegation. If one of the two has to be relegated, I'd rather it was Brighton.
Oh, obviously, so, yeah. No, I understand that.
I'd rather both teams stayed up, so I had that fixture to look forward to, because everything else in the Premier League's a bit plastic, and like there's no. I don't know how to explain it, because like Premier League, it's all nice, so it's a bit more polished, like, you know.
Yeah, I get you. Like as someone, you might feel the same, but as someone who sat through, you know, obviously Brighton were, you know, historically more League One, League Two, but all that time in the Championship that we spent and Palace spent as well. I think I prefer the Championship as a division across the whole season than I do the Premier League.
Definitely. But then, like, I do. There are elements of the Premier League that I do like being able to watch my Palace play like whenever.
Yeah.
Like I don't have to wait until our fixtures announced that Sky are going to play, like, you know, one of, like, there are 3 fixtures a year or whatever on Championship fixtures. You know, every game's on TV somewhere, match of the day, all that sort of stuff, and the financial security that comes with it.
Yeah,
I don't have to worry about, because if your team's in the Championship, you're only a couple seasons away potentially from, I don't know, financial troubles, or definitely at least having to sell your best players every season. And I haven't seen my football team go into administration twice in the space of 10 years, and nearly losing my football team twice. I'd much rather we were in the Premier League, where we had the financial security.
Absolutely, and let's talk about then leading on the new season starting. Patrick Vieira in charge. Interesting appointment, I thought. What are your thoughts? How do you think Palace will get on this season?
I don't know, because I was quite nervous and worried when we appointed him, because it's like, okay, we got Vieira. He's not done much in the Premier League in terms of managing. He's done a few bits in, like, I think he's managed in France, and
he managed in the MLS, didn't he?
Yeah, that's it. MLS and France. And he's not proven in the Premier League. The managers we were being linked with had a bit more experience in the Premier League, and then he was named, and okay, right, we got a manager in, but we have it's quite well documented that we had like 10 or 11 players or something.
Yeah, that was crazy.
I mean, a lot of them were fringe players. Like, there was no, like, there was a couple of first team players, people who were replaceable. There was no one there that I was ever worried about. Vieira's getting in, like, some really good signings, like, showing some real intent, and you know, if they can gel quickly and we keep hold of Zaha, I think we'll have a decent season. I don't think we'll be threatened by relegation. I'm looking forward to this season. I think we'll probably finish, like, I don't know, 12th, 14th or something. But I'd rather that every season than end up finishing like 17th.
No. For example. What about then for your final Palace thing then, as your, I guess it's too early to do prediction for when we play you, but what are your thoughts ahead of sort of Brighton Palace this season? How do you think you see those ones going? Because it's been tense, hasn't it? There's been a lot of draws. We beat you 3-0 at the Amex, which was lovely, with 10 men. Then obviously you beat us last season. So how do you see it going this year?
I think it'll be like a 1-0 either way. Like, from what's happened so far in our pre-season, I don't think we're going to concede too many goals. And I think we're going to nick games 1-0, I think. But it could go either way. Like, that's the thing. Like,
it's always tense, isn't it? That's the thing. Do you enjoy it? Because I don't know if I enjoy it. I mean, like, I like it maybe being there, like the atmosphere, but I'm not sure if I enjoy the match. Do you know what I mean? Because I'm always just like, like tense.
Yeah, it's always really tense, actually, because they never have this Brighton games. They never really go. They're either one way or the other. Like, we have had the odd draw, but like the draws that we've had have been like at Selhurst, when I've expected us to win, so it's just been disappointing. Or, like, you know, rival win or lose, or it's a disappointing draw.
Yeah.
So it's like either end of the spectrum. I've never been to like a Palace Brighton game where I'm like, yeah, that result was like whatever fair result. I've either been really happy or like pissed off, basically. So
that's the way it always goes, isn't it? Always. No. Let's move on to your other love in life, because obviously you've got wrestling and you've got football, and you're also a huge fan of Ibiza.
Well, I say a huge fan. I live there for parts of the year. So at the moment, I don't know if you can see behind me. There's just a suitcase.
Yes, I saw that. I noticed that. Yeah.
Suitcase. So I'm actually. Oh no, sorry, can't see. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, I noticed that when your camera was tilted the other way. Yeah.
So I'm going back home this weekend. So and I'll be there back and forth. This is the annoying thing now, where the situation with quarantine and blah, blah. I now have to. I'm out there, and then I'm back for wrestling bookings, and I'm out there, and blah 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 blah. But before, for the very brief period it was green, it was great.
Yeah.
Now I come back and quarantine, and then wrestle. If I was coming back and then going straight back out there, you only have to quarantine for an amount of time you're in the country. But anyway, so I'll go back out there this weekend.
So when did that all start? The whole, when was that first trip? When did you first think like, yeah, I like it here? When was that first trip where you were like, this is where I want to be?
2010. So like I used to go. Basically, I went there on holiday 2010, and then since I got back, I booked another holiday out there for that year, and I did that. I've done it every year up until. Basically, I haven't missed a season out there basically since 2010, and then up until 2019. So yeah, 2017 up to then I go twice a year every year. 2018 I went 3 times. 2019 I went 4 times, and then last year I just moved out there for the whole summer.
Yeah,
basically because of COVID, no wrestling or whatever. I could do my day job or work remotely, all that sort of stuff. I just rented an apartment and stayed there for the whole summer.
I can imagine quarantining summer in Ibiza is probably a bit nicer than the UK.
Well, so they were pretty relaxed on everything because they took COVID very seriously at the beginning. So whereas we didn't as much. And it kind of came back to bite us. Like they locked down proper. Like you're only allowed to leave your house to go to the supermarket, and even then, you're on the way home. Your police would check your receipt for the supermarket, and they'll be looking at whether what you bought, if what you bought is essential.
That's crazy.
And they'd be looking at the time that you left the supermarket.
That's mental.
So you couldn't go to the supermarket and be like, well, I'm just going to go pop to my friend's house or whatever. But they'd be like, you left the supermarket this time, why are you not home yet?
Yeah.
And they have 2, I guess, forms or bodies of police. The Policia, who are just regular police, and the Guardia, who are like cross between the police and the army.
Wow.
You don't want to mess with the Guardia. They're law to their own. I've heard many stories of the Guardia arresting people and then taking them out to a random location, stealing people's wallets and their phones and giving them a shoeing, and then left them there to fend for themselves to get back to where they need. So they're not very nice. So anyway, they did lock down properly. And then so they're able to open up for tourists because the main bit of money they get is from tourism. So that was fine for like a few months, and all of a sudden, COVID started to creep up because they didn't have any real sort of testing. Testing wasn't a thing last year or summer. It was like you get your temperature read at the airport, and that was it. And if your temperature was fine, you can come in. Someone basically arrived, and they knew they had COVID, but they wanted to go anyway. And it just kind of spread through the island quite quickly. Things got shut, so they started shutting, closing place venues like an hour earlier. Then they imposed curfews on people, so you had to be home between the hours of 10 and 6 in the morning. And again, the Guardia were patrolling the streets 10 o'clock. if you were out on the streets at 10 o'clock, you get a fine, quite a hefty fine. So they were doing it proper. When it got to that stage, I was like, right, I think it's probably time for me to go home now, because someone was ending the story, and they basically kept those measures until for the whole of winter, going into like May time. So luckily, I got home before any of it became too much. But then they stayed that way until May, and they've opened up again. But they made the mistake of not testing British people when they arrived, just letting them come in.
Yeah.
And then the COVID rate's gone back up, but I think it's crept back down now. So
that's good. That's good. Which do you prefer? Do you prefer being out there, or do you prefer being here?
Depends what for. Like, obviously, there's no wrestling out there.
Yeah.
So if I'm not wrestling, I'll be out there. If I'm wrestling, I'll be here. That's the trade off I've made. So I look at my diary, and I'm like, right. So I'm wrestling here, and here and here and whatever. Can I fit visits to Ibiza?
Yeah.
In between those, and because of the amber list situation, it's a lot more tricky. If it was green, it'd be easy. I'd finish my show and I'd be on a plane. That's how I'd but now I have to wait to have gaps in my schedule and blah blah blah. So,
yeah. Well, we're gonna see which you prefer, because I'm gonna throw a few just topics out there for you, and you tell me if you prefer each topic in Ibiza or London. Well, not London, England in general. No, yeah, England in general.
Okay.
All right. So, food.
English. Fish and chips especially. Whenever I go out to Ibiza, I come back, I crave fish and chips. Like, it's like mad. I like, one of the first things I have to do when I get back is go and buy fish and chips, because you can't get it in Ibiza.
Can't you?
Well, you can, but it's not good. It's
gotcha.
Like, when you go somewhere, it's like the foreign place's interpretation
of British. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not good. So, yeah.
Go on then. Weather.
Ibiza.
I've got these as two separate, but they might be the same thing. Nightlife.
Ibiza.
And then other entertainment that's not nightlife. Cinemas, bowling, whatever you like doing that's not nightlife.
So other entertainment, England. I'd say that because I like going to cinema and stuff. But then, like, recently I've been to cinema nights at outdoor venues in Ibiza, and they've been amazing. And they put like old films on. Like the other day, I think I watched Grease, and it was like a Grease themed cinema night. It was quite cool.
That does sound quite cool.
And they put on Bohemian Rhapsody, which is like, I don't know if you've seen it.
Yeah. Good film. Yeah. I like Queen.
It's like one of my favourite films. So that was cool. But yeah, there's more options for entertainment stuff over here, really. So I say England entertainment.
Awesome. What was the next one? People.
Ibiza.
Really?
Yeah.
A bit friendly.
They're horrible. Everyone's miserable. Everyone's miserable over here. Whereas everyone in Ibiza's happy. And over here, it's very, very difficult, and impossible to get a compliment from someone. People just throw them around willy-nilly. It's great.
Fab. Two more. The housing.
I'd say Ibiza, but with a caveat, because when you live somewhere in Ibiza, you are going to get one of two kinds of places. You either get Spanish, which is horrible crap. They're not very nice. Basically, they're quite dated, or modern. And modern is like really nice places. So luckily, I've never lived anywhere in Ibiza that's been Spanish, because I wouldn't say it very long anyway. Not that it's horrible. Things work and everything. It's just like
it's not your style.
Yeah, but like modern. If you live somewhere modern, then you're going to have like nice stuff. 9 times out of 10 will have a pool. If you don't have a pool yourself, you have access to a pool. So it's yeah.
Nice. And then the final one, something else that's important to you: gyms.
Gyms, England.
Yeah.
Yeah, like so when I lived out there last year, there was a gym around the corner from me, but it was kind of crappy. Although the gyms in Ibiza have aircon, a lot of gyms over here don't. The equipment's generally better in the UK gyms, and like in Ibiza, they have siesta.
Yeah.
So there's time of the day where Spanish people get tired and they don't want to do anything. So everything shuts for like an hour or 2 hours or whatever during the day it's really irritating because, like, say for example, I want to go to the gym at like 2-3 o'clock. Basically, they do it because it's the hottest part of the day, basically.
Yeah.
So if I want to go to the gym that I train at, they shut for like an hour or 2 hours in the middle of the day because it's too hot for people to work.
Yeah, and you're like,
it's like, but you have aircon, so it just
makes no sense. You can just blast the aircon.
Yeah, why is this thing? So like, that's another annoying thing. And also the gym that I went to last year, they're just closed on a Sunday. No Sunday opening hours or anything. It's like, no, we don't want to open on a Sunday, so it's closed. So
ridiculous. Who closes on a Sunday nowadays? It's crazy.
Yeah. But there was, so I found a new gym this year, and it's actually has aircon. It's nice, but and oh god, the views it looks out onto the sea and everything, so that's amazing. But then they're really funny now with COVID and masks. Like you have to wear a mask in the gym in Ibiza, which is just ridiculous.
That's got to be uncomfortable, yeah.
It's really uncomfortable, and then like you take it down to catch some air, and people are like, put your mask back on. They're very, very militant about it. So
yeah.
So England wins that one.
And then, sort of as like a final talking point, leading on from the gyms, is something that I noticed on your Instagram, and I'm not sure how many other wrestling fans are aware of this, but you had a little run like doing powerlifting and stuff before you came to wrestling. So what kickstarted that?
I just fell into it at uni a long time ago. I just was training with some guys who did it, and they convinced me to do competition, and then I just ended up doing loads of different competitions, and I was doing that before I started wrestling, which I was actually thinking today I wish I started wrestling earlier, but then I don't think I would have had the same experience within wrestling because doing powerlifting gave me a lot of attributes that I could use for wrestling that I wouldn't have had from just doing wrestling training on its own, I don't think. So
what about those two circuits? Like, obviously I know they're different sports and different disciplines, but how does it differ going sort of competition to competition powerlifting to going show to show wrestling? What are those differences?
So the thing with powerlifting is you can't really, you can do back-to-back competitions, but you'll burn yourself out quite quickly because the body needs time to recover and what have you, and then you need to train for them. So I'll probably end up doing a competition at most every maybe 6 to 8 weeks. Do the training in between. Whereas wrestling, I'll be wrestling. Well, hopefully when everything's back to normal, I'll be wrestling every weekend, like twice a weekend, what have you.
Yeah.
And you can do that because you're wrestling in short bursts, 10, 15, 20 minutes maybe. And then that's it. You can relax wherever. Powerlifting is a lot more taxing on the body. The training is really taxing on your body as well.
Sure, I can imagine.
Yeah, so there's that element. And then there's the thing that actually it really irritated me coming from powerlifting background going into wrestling is with powerlifting, you'll always 100% get out what you put in. Right? If you're doing all the training, doing what your coach says, you're sleeping properly, eating properly, taking the right supplements, all that sort of stuff. Like you'll get results. You'll improve on your last competition, blah blah blah. And if you're the best, if you're the best lifter on the day, you win. That's it. Right? There's no other variables. With wrestling, there's a lot of things that go into it, which I won't go into in general. But a lot of politics, like maybe favorism and stuff, and a lot of stuff is based on opinion rather than actual tangible things. Like if someone's stronger than someone, they're stronger than them. You can't dispute it. If someone's a good fit for a wrestling promotion, that's someone's opinion. If someone's a better wrestler than someone, that's someone's opinion. And so a lot of it's stuff you can't control. I could go to wrestling school, train every day for however many days of a year. But if someone's opinion is that someone else is a better wrestler than me, that's it.
Yeah, sure.
You can't change that. So that's one thing I struggled with a lot. Like with into wrestling is, you know, especially when I started, because I came straight from powerlifting. In fact, I was still powerlifting when I first started wrestling.
Right.
Going in between two is like, right, I've got this competition. I've won this competition because I did the work for it. I go back to wrestling. I'm like, no, I'm not being used for this show because, in the opinion of the promoter, someone else is a better fit for it. Someone else is a better wrestler, blah blah blah, whatever. And so that thing I really struggled with to begin with, but now it's not something I think about, to be honest. So.
No, sure. No, I can imagine, especially coming from that sort of background where, you know, all the work you're doing is based on results and results and results. To come in and have it then not be based necessarily on results is, I can imagine it's got to be tricky.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any sort of like bizarre like stories or memories from your time powerlifting? Yeah.
Nothing bizarre really. I've done like quite a few big competitions. I've lifted at the Body Power Expo. I've lifted at a European Championships, World Championships, quite a few British Championships. There's nothing interesting or funny goes on at power competition. You just lift, and if you're good, if you get your lifts in and you lift the most, you win. I said, I literally cannot think of one interesting thing. It's a pretty dull sport, actually, to be honest. I think when I lifted at Body Power, they let you have entrance music, so that's cool. So I had my own entrance music on the indies play as I was lifting, which is actually quite cool. Like in front of like 1,000 people, basically.
Nice.
So that was quite cool. But other than that, I can't think
Fair
of it.
enough.
I myself. That was fun. But that pushed me towards wrestling. So
sure. What about then, in terms of like, just because you mentioned it, the sort of the thing you found tricky to get over was the fact that, you know, powerlifting is all based on results, whereas wrestling necessarily isn't. In terms of then, you know, winning competitions, powerlifting, and then, you know, say winning matches, winning titles, what have you, wrestling. Does that put wrestling in a different bracket? Like, how does it make you feel different wise? Because obviously then when you win a match, when you win a title, when you win whatever in wrestling, it's that person, that promotion who are saying, you know, we have that faith in you to do this. Does that give you a different sort of sense of feeling than winning a competition just purely because you're the best?
So when you win something because you're the best, you're kind of like, I won't say it's a given, but you're kind of the opinion that, do you know what I mean? If I go to a competition and my first lift, I squat 280 kilos or something, and no one else squats that on their first lift, I'm thinking, okay, I'm in with a chance here to win this now.
Sure.
So that sticks with you with whatever. With wrestling, you go to a wrestling show and the promoter says, you know, you're going to be in the main event tonight against such and such big name. You think, well, okay, so the promoter has faith in me. Everything, like the work that I put into wrestling is justified.
Yeah.
So it's a different kind of gratification because like the work you're doing is being recognised rather than the work you're doing is producing the result. Because the work you're doing should produce a result in powerlifting. There's no other variables between it. You know, if you're training, if you're the best lifter and you're training, you know, hard, there's no other variables. Whereas with wrestling, if you're working hard and you can still just not get noticed. Like there's loads of other wrestlers that I know of who work incredibly hard, but for whatever reason they don't get any sort of, they're not noticed or any sort of recognition for it. But when you get that, it's like a mix between the two different types of gratification. If a wrestling promoter says you're wrestling this person in the main event for our show because we have faith in you as a wrestler to do, you know, have a good match or whatever, you know.
No, absolutely, no, totally. No, Roy, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to me. I really appreciate it.
No worries, man.
And big fan of everything you're doing, you know, in ring. Can't wait to see you back in the ring as well. Hopefully, you know, if Josh at Riptide, if you're watching, when Riptide come back, get Roy down because we want to see the Palace hatred back. But yeah, no, all the best with everything. Really enjoy the work you're doing with BritWres, and hopefully you'll be in the ring with them soon as well.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
No, thanks for taking the time to talk to me. And yeah, hopefully we'll chat again soon. And I'll, of course, let you know when this goes out as well.
Cool.
Thanks so much. Enjoy Ibiza as well.
Yeah, so I'm back this weekend, thank God.
Have a good time. Enjoy the sun.
Yeah, no, the weather's consistent there at least. I can't
it's meant to be raining all weekend here, so.
Yeah, exactly.
Lovely stuff.
Perfect. And just to say, if anyone in Ibiza sees me in a rave, it wasn't me.
Definitely not. Cheers, mate. Thank you so much. Have a great day and have a great weekend.
All right, take care.
Thanks so much. See you later. Bye.